All right, so dual optic carbines are nothing new. Usually an LPVO on top with either an offset red dot like I have here or a red dot mounted on top of the LPVO. These setups have been out for quite some time now. I use this very same setup right here, my last tour in Afghanistan back in 2015. But there is a new dual optic setup that is emerging out of the competitive shooting world, which I want to cover in this video. I have an example right here. And that is a red dot mounted on top with an offset magnified prism. In this case, this is a primary arms. This is their 3-power prism, and it's offset. So, red dot on top, offset prism. Does this work, and where is the application for this setup? Let's get into it right now. So I've been contemplating running a setup like this for quite some time now. Red dot on top with an offset powered prism. Looking online, I couldn't find any information, anyone doing it. All I found was this post right here in a gun forum from back in 2020. Here are the posters basically asking the validity of running an offset prism with a red dot on top. And most of the people responding kind of scoffed at them. Well, here in 2023, this is now the emerging setup in certain competitive shooting sports. So to that original poster back in 2020, well, I think you've turned out to be correct. This is an emerging setup and it has great application, and I'm gonna get into how does this apply, where's the best application of a powered prism, and the details of this setup right now. So one of the most frequent questions I probably see online is people are always asking, hey, what is the best optic setup for my rifle? And what's often neglected is frequency. And by frequency, I mean the frequency at what distances you're going to see targets. Now, for the style of shooting I do, which is mainly two-gun shooting, most of the stages are 100 yards and under. And in fact, I would say 90% of the targets in each stage are 30 yards and under. So 30 yards and under, a red dot shines. So I want my red dot in the primary spot on my rifle. 10% of the shots are in that 35 to, I would say, 70 meter mark, and they're usually steel plates. Now the match is the Zoo City 2-gun put on by Carolina Guns and Gear. It's one of the best matches in North Carolina for two-gun. I wish the format would take off nationally. They use USPSA style scoring, but the way they do it is you engage the USPSA clamshells with rifle and the humanoid USPSAs with pistol. So you show up on a stage, you're gonna figure out how you're gonna engage this format. And steel plates can be shot with either rifle or pistol. And these steel plates, they're between 4-inch wide little mini poppers to 6-inch plates, and they'll put those out at 35, 40, 50, 60, 70 yards. Totally feasible with a red dot, but it is going to slow you down a bit. And that's where having a little bit of magnification shines, is transitioning to that hard shot. With a 3-power prism, I'm not really looking to extend the range of the rifle. I'm really looking at enhancing my ability to hit targets within a certain range. And with a 3-power, really that's 200 yards and under. So having it offset is there for that 10% chance that I need to hit that hard target. And then the 90% of the time I'm shooting the rest where I'm just blazing it on paper while my red dot's in that primary spot. And that's how this offset mount with the Prism has really developed. Now, why now? Why run an offset? We've had LPVOs forever. Why are they always top mounted? Well, obviously that has to do with technology. Just in the last 2 years have primary arms and companies like Vortex offered these prisms with magnified power that are small enough to offset. If you look at this primary arms 3-power prism, it's no larger than this red dot right here. In fact, primary arms makes a 5-power, and so does Vortex make a 5-power prism that's really not much bigger than this. So it took technology to catch up to be able to offset a optic that's not too large and too bulky. Again, this is no bigger than a standard red dot, and I bet you most people looking at this gun might even think this is just 2 red dots mounted, one offset, one on top. Now for an example of what I'm talking about, I'm going to be playing a clip here. It's my buddy Walter. He's a stout competitive shooter, and in this 2-gun stage, he's going to start off shooting paper with his red dot, and then as he approaches a window, he's going to transition to his offset prism, engage a 6-inch plate at about 35 yards, and then transition back to his red dot shooting paper.
Hit.
Now, if you missed it, here he is again. This is from his point of view. Again, coming into the window, shoot a 6-inch plate, and then clean up the paper as he exits the window.
Hit.
So that is a great example where this offset prism can come into play, just making those hard shots a little bit easier. Now I know a big question I'll probably get is, hey, why not just run a flip over magnifier? It does the same thing. Well, I've never been a fan of the flip off to the side magnifiers. One, you've got to take your hand off the gun to flip it into place and then rotate it back when you're not using it. That takes time. And also when you use a magnifier with a red dot, it also enhances the size of the red dot. So for precise shooting, that can make it a little bit harder. If you're running a 2-minute angle dot, and let's say you're running a 3-power magnifier, well, it's going to change that into a 6 MOA dot. And let's say you have to shoot out to 200 yards, well, now that's a 12 MOA dot. That's how it's going to appear. So let's say you're shooting a 6-inch plate, well, that red dot's going to obscure the entire 6-inch plate, so you're not going to have a fine point of aim. So I've never been a fan of the flip off to the side magnifiers, just for those 2 reasons. They're slower and you lose a little bit of accuracy due to the dot also being magnified. So I can't emphasize enough the advantage of using an offset mount, say over a top mounted optic. With an offset, you can keep good cheek to stock contact, rotating the gun. Whereas if you have top mounted, you go from cheek up to a chin mount and you've got to change the position of your head. Offset, it's a simple roll of the rifle. Your cheek stays in contact with the rifle. I believe it's a lot more stable. I know there's people out there that swear by a top mounted red dot, and sure, they work at, say, room distance 10 yards and under, but 30, 40, 100 meter shots, offset mount is where it's at. A lot more stable, and again, a lot faster with a quick turn of the gun. Now, so far I've only talked about this setup in the context of competitive shooting, but how about tactical shooting? Does this have a tactical application? Now, while I have my YouTube channel here, I'm probably best known for my series of articles on defensereview.com, the Competition to Combat Crossover, where during my 3 tours in Afghanistan, I documented all the competitive shooting accessories that really made their way onto tactical rifles. And the lines have long since blurred on the difference between a tactical rifle and a, say, 3-gun competitive shooting race rifle, because what wins in matches can help you win in a gunfight. So if these optic setups with the offset prism continue to grow and guys do well in matches with offset prisms, I think it's just a matter of time before you see tactical shooters give these a try. And the advantage of this over, say, an LPVO, an offset red dot, again, you save a lot of weight and a lot of space on the gun. These prisms are pretty compact. And it all goes back to frequency of the different ranges you're going to be shooting at. In Afghanistan, they love to fight at distance, so I'd want an LPVO. But let's look at Ukraine and unfortunately what's going on in Gaza right now. In Ukraine, they're doing a lot of trench clearing, a lot of fighting in wood lines, a lot of urban fighting. Same thing in Gaza, a lot of urban fighting. That's where the fight is. So a lot of short range shots, a red dot's going to shine. But if you are presented every once in a while with a long range target, 100, 200, 300 yards, say in an urban area where you're crossing a field in Ukraine, well, having a little bit of magnification is going to help you engage those threats. Sure, you can engage a man-sized target at 200 yards with a red dot, but what about, say, a partially exposed threat hiding in a windowsill or behind a tree? A little bit of magnification is definitely going to help you out. But if the primary distances you're engaging threats at is short range, then I definitely would want my red dot again in the primary slot. So I think offset prism, now that technology's caught up and these are smaller and it's feasible, I think it's just a matter of time before we see tactical shooters try these. Maybe not super soon, but definitely sometime here in the future, you're gonna see them. All right, real quick, I wanna mention core belts, specifically the core battle belt. Now, this is a 1.75 inch width belt with 2 rows of MOLLE webbing. It is an inner outer belt combo, and like all core belts, it uses a ratcheting buckle system. So unlike, say, a Cobra buckle, which relies on friction to keep the belt tight, this is gonna ratchet and lock in place. This is a super rigid and sturdy belt. It's not gonna sag or flex, so it provides a nice clean and crisp draw out of the holster with the pistol. I've been running this belt for about 3 months now. I wore it in one of the classes that I taught. And also, this has made an appearance in my SIG 556 shootability video. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I'm a huge fan. Core belts in general, especially their EDC belt, I own both their nylon and leather version. They've replaced all my EDC belts. And as far as this belt goes, I'm gonna keep using it. You're gonna see me in future videos rocking this battle belt. You can check it out at coreessentials.com, and this runs about $140, which is pretty comparable to all the other tactical belts out there on the market. So again, this is the Core battle belt. Now this setup right here, this has a primary arms SLX push button micro dot, my favorite red dot on the market. For the money, I don't think this can be beat. Now, as far as the offset Prism, I started with a mount by Bit Shaky Defense, not a very well-known company, but they make an adjustable mount where you can adjust the angle and the height of the optic. And now I'm playing with a mount by AMS Machine. They're here in North Carolina. They make pretty stout offset mounts, and that's what's on here right now. And I have yet to shoot this in a match. I've only had this set up for about 2 weeks now as I'm making this video. So aside from zeroing it and doing some range drills, I'm super pumped and looking forward to running this in a 2-gun match to see how well it performs. And again, I think it's the future's now, and I think this is the emerging setup, and we're just gonna see this catch on more and more with competitive shooters. And as all things do, cross over into the tactical world sometime here in the near future as tactical shooters see this doing well in competitive shooting. That's how Vortex conquered the market. When the Vortex Razor came out 1:6, it dominated competitive shooting for the longest time. And SF guys at Fort Bragg were looking at the Vortex Razor. Yes, in the long run, SF did not get the Razor, but look at Vortex now. They're crushing it with military contracts. And Vortex made a name for itself in competitive shooting first. All right, so I have a paper target at about 10 yards. I have 3 steel plates. The drill will be 2 shots on paper, and then I hit on steel, and I'll bounce back and forth. So first I'll do all red dot, 2 on paper, 1 on steel, 2 on paper, 1 on steel, 2 on paper, 1 on steel. And then round 2, I'll do 2 on paper with the red dot, and then when I go to the steel, I'll transition to the offset 3 power. Let's do it. So I had a lot of trouble getting a first round hit with the red dot, and then I was able to clean it up, a 12.54. Let's transition to the offset. Woo! 11.12. Not that much faster, really, only by a second, but that's what counts. Seconds, what wins matches. Let me do one more run. Let's look at my target real quick. I've got 90% A's on the paper target. Follow me. So this is both runs. I think this is my red dot, and this is the primary arms micro dot. 90% A's. Let's do a round 2. A lot better with the red dot that time. 8.85. I'm an 8, 8, 8. Took an extra shot, so the red dot was even that time. Let's do another drill. All right, 1 hit on each steel off the barrier. Let's do red dot first. And that's a 863. All right, round 2, 1 hit on each plate at 100 yards. This time, offset prism. Let's do it. Woo! And that's a 601. All right, so here it is, the next big trend in optics setups on rifles. Red dot on top, offset magnified prism. But as always, hopefully you found this video entertaining and informative. I'm super pumped about this setup. Again, I can't wait to run it in a match. But as always, I'm Jeff Gerwich. Thanks for watching.